did well. Spotted Crawford, Mitchell. Now Bateman. Run down from behind. Well done by Davey. He chases like a librarian. You don't hear him coming. Swung across. Warnock. Bell. Davey. 70 metres out from goal.
Bell's first kick. She'd gone inside their attacking 50.
Takes the man on. Steps around O'Brien. Robertson headed back to the square. Davey runs to the 50, sells a dummy, bit of magic. This will bring the roof down and it's not the dome.
Our guest tonight was a favourite among fans over many years with his silky skills, and it's no stretch to say that he helped revolutionise the way the game is played with his manic forward defensive pressure, something which is taken for granted in the modern game. He played 178 games in the red and blue and booted 174 goals, winning the club's best and fairest in 2009. Thanks for joining us on the Demonland podcast, Aaron Davey.
Thanks, guys.
Aaron, you were unable to attend the 2003 draft camp for family reasons and were overlooked as a result. Under different circumstances, might you have ended up at a club other than the Demons?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I was invited to a screening out at 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝗁, but yeah, I wasn't invited to the actual national draft camp. But it was just sort of one of those ones where I don't think I tested too well in the endurance compartment. But and then I did a bit of a pre-season with North Melbourne and got asked by the Demons and Craig Cameron and Danners, but sort of refused because I played at Port Melbourne. But things happen for a reason, and Melbourne picked me in the rookie draft.
Melbourne taking you in the rookie draft meant that you weren't able to be selected, obviously, for the seniors. Is it true that some members of the Melbourne coterie passed the hat around and came up with the $10,000 needed to promote you to the seniors so you could get a game?
Yeah, there's some truth behind that. So I think at that stage I was obviously rookie, as was pretty well documented, and the chances of getting a senior game being a rookie was not overly high, and it obviously had to fall into a bit of luck, whether it was a long-term injury and then they'd elevate someone. And I was very fortunate enough to have a group of supporters, the coterie group, that were able to sort of pass a hat around and get some money. And I think, from my understanding, is I think Danners and the clubs might have put Nita on the veterans list, and it sort of opened up the spot, and supporters came through with a bit of money, and it gave me my opportunity, and I sort of took it with both hands.
Aaron, you booted 28 goals in your first season. You won the AFL Players Association Award for the best first-year player, and you looked right at home out on the field. Did you always believe that you had the talent to make it at the top grade, or is that something that developed as you played more senior footy?
I guess as a kid growing up, I had always had enormous confidence in my ability and in footy talent. But obviously that's one thing to have, and obviously I wanted to play AFL footy coming from Darwin, and which I've spoken a fair few times. I look back now, a young Indigenous kid coming from Darwin to chase the dream and play AFL was probably unrealistic at the time. But I sort of pursued my AFL career by just going down and playing in Port Adelaide a few times in the SANFL under Steve Williams and Gary Treadray, and sort of gave me a bit of confidence. Played some senior footy there, and although I was overlooked a few times, and sort of asked the question if I did have what it took to make it, and then I was very fortunate enough to be given an opportunity from Port Melbourne, and I went down there, and to this day I sort of still pinch myself to ask myself the question, I guess. That was my best footy I played probably in my whole life, and the reward then was clearly getting rookied by Melbourne at the end of that year.
Flash, you basically invented the concept of forward pressure as we know it today, running down opponents, fierce tackling, doing the 1%ers. Is that something that coaches encouraged you to do, or had that always been a part of your game?
No, I think before I did get drafted, I was a bit of the old traditional small forward, but always worried about attacking. And, you know, I just wanted to make the most of my opportunity. I'm very close mates with Daniel Wells, and I went on a number of occasions and watched him the year before when he played for Kangaroos, and still remember him doing a couple of those tackles. And then just sort of seeing the effect it had on some of his teammates and obviously the crowd. And so I went into Melbourne and I started sitting down, I guess, with a great mentor of mine. And he obviously was my manager as well, Alex McDonald, and we started working out some sort of plan and goals to how I could maintain staying in the side. And obviously speed was my biggest thing back then. I wouldn't just say that it is right now because I could barely run. But speed was obviously the biggest thing, and I thought I'd just change my mindset, and I wanted to try and cement my spot, and thought of something a lot more outside the circle as a small forward, and that was to use my pace and try and inspire my teammates through my rundown tackling and obviously my work rate, and and it sort of went from there. And you know, it is always a little bit good to hear that some of these current day players still acknowledge my contribution, I guess, back in the day, and my pressure that I did apply. And I look back now and I don't have any regrets on my whole 10-year career at the Demons.
That forward pressure was one of the most exciting aspects of your game, aside from the freakish goals, obviously. And those chase downs were amazing. I'd certainly never seen anything like it, especially not in the frequency that you were doing it. For me, there was nothing more exciting than being at the G and you seemingly coming out of nowhere and taking down an opponent who had absolutely no idea that you were coming. Is that where you got the nickname Flash? Did you get that nickname at the D's, or was that something that you were doing before coming over?
No, it was from the D's, so I still recall. I think it might have started sticking down at Sandringham in the pre-season throughout I think it might have been Ooze and a few of the boys, maybe Tigger, Johnson, and a few of the boys just started calling me that, and I guess the name sort of stuck then after that, and it was one of those ones where it stuck throughout my career, and it's amazing what a nickname like that can do now, sort of the impact it has in life even after footy. Some guys still call me it, but most people know me as that now. So, it is. It was just one of those things back in the day where I was very fortunate enough to have a lot of amount of speed, and like I said, now you can ask yourself the question, it's probably not so flash now.
Yeah, you played a lot of your footy under the Reverend, the great Neil Danaher. What was he like as a coach, and how hard is it for you to see him battling through his current illness?
Yeah, look, I'll forever be grateful and thankful for the opportunity that Dana's gave me, and also the belief he had in me. And, I still speak to a lot of young kids and people when I do share my story about my journey, and it's all about things that you do learn. So obviously a great coach, also was a good mentor as well for someone like myself. Never overcomplicated things with me. Obviously coming into the game still pretty raw and young, and just told me to go out there and do what I'd done best. And I'd always go out there and try and play my role as everyone tries to do, and use my spirit and inspire my teammates and try and get in wins as much as we could. But, I still remember, pretty clear a conversation we had around leadership, which obviously back then I was fairly young and I have to think that I didn't have those type of attributes, but it's amazing what a little bit of guidance and confidence and reassurance from someone like Dana's who said a couple of things that stand out to my mind, that you'll one day captain the club, which unfortunately I didn't, but I came extremely close in 2010. I became vice captain, and that I'd be a leader of this footy club. And I laughed at the time. I sort of said, I don't think he really knows me here. I'm sort of the clown in the change rooms, and that's as far as it goes. But just through the reassurance and constant guidance, and being put in leadership groups, and then you start realising the potential and the impact that I was having on my footy mates and teammates on game day through, obviously, although I wasn't the most vocal leader, the way I sort of led was through my actions on the footy field, and and then sort of goes on from there, and it sort of gives me a great springboard. And into obviously how I looked at a lot of things and obviously preparing for my footy. And then, he's just truly an amazing man, and we can see the great work he's doing now. But, obviously a great coach, but more importantly, a very special and, lovely person.
How close were you with Dean Bailey, and what impact did his passing a few years back have on you?
Yeah, well, then obviously that ties into then Bales coming in. Had a great relationship with Bales, extremely close relationship as well. And I was very fortunate enough to be coached by two great coaches and mentors, and him and Danners. As I said, Danners sort of kept my game pretty simple and gave me all the right sort of guidance and stuff to allow me to become good and never overcomplicate things. But as you sort of get a bit older and a little bit more wiser and the game does evolve and change, Bales come in with a really good teaching, way of the game, and I learnt so much, which I will say that I reckon it sort of gave me a bit of an ambition to want to sort of explore coaching, which I'm coaching now up in Cairns, and you just learn a lot more about, obviously coaching and stuff like that, but, the best thing's about just working and managing with people and trying to get the best out of them. So his passing was extremely sad, and then obviously, it was a massive shock, and such a great man with a great heart that people could probably question it at times, but I reckon the club we were in pretty good hands there for a few years, and I think just all the sort of negative criticism that did sort of come towards the back end was unfair on all, but unfortunately, that's the industry that we were in, and but extremely sad, and that was it.
Flash, I read one review of your career which mentions the arrival of Byron Pickett at the club, and it said that around this time you started to show a little bit more aggression on the field. Is that true? Did Byron put a bit of mongrel into your game?
Obviously I was very lucky to play with some amazing people and players, and 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗲 was one of them. And I've seen that sort of float around. I think, it wasn't more about the aggression. I think when you played footy with Byron Pickett, it allowed you to walk taller, and as everyone was sort of aware, obviously speed was my biggest thing, and opposition really took a lot of time and effort and how they sort of try and affect the impact that I did have on game day. So I used to get a few niggles and some pesky defenders that were getting under my skin a bit. And I think just being young and not really exposed to that after the first year that I did have, I started getting a little bit more sucked in. And you sort of get a bit more confidence and try and stand up for yourself, which obviously that's not reflective of the type of person I was. It's just one of those things when you're out on the footy field. And obviously Byron was there to be sort of my protector, him and Nita, which, it's not every day you get two guys like that, so that you can run around with. But, I think it would be unfair to say it was because Byron was there, because Byron obviously had the biggest heart. And I think it was just due to my part of my development as a young footy player, dealing with attention and being tagged as well.
Yep. You finished third in the best and fairest in just your second season, and then you went on to take out the Bluey itself a few years later. That must be a source of immense pride for you, the best and fairest win.
Yeah, obviously that's probably been the pinnacle of my AFL footy career, was to be given the 2009 AFL Melbourne Demons, Keith Louis Truscott Award, which I sort of sit down now and have a bit of a chat to my sons about it and the importance and how special it is, obviously, to myself. And it does allow me to sort of get back and sort of reflect on how far I had come, not only as a footballer but as a person as well. And I do hold that with great pride. And when I do speak to a lot of young kids, it's not every day you get to be the only Indigenous best and fairest winner at the oldest AFL club. That's something that I'll hold, extremely close to my heart and very grateful of. And again, I wouldn't have been able to achieve that if it wasn't for the great guys I did have around. And one of them was also he's a legend of the club, but James McDonald, Jimmy, and guys like that, Matty Whelan, That award wouldn't have been possible without great people like that and all my teammates.
Aaron, in 2006, you were nominated 3 times for Goal of the Year. In fact, just last week on this podcast, we were talking about one of them when you were hard up on the boundary line in the wet at the G. You kicked a swag of them over your career. Do you have a favourite one that you kicked?
I think I went through a bit of a patch there where I was kicking all these goals. I don't know where from. I think it was just on instinct. But, my sons sit down and they watch it all the time on YouTube, and then they sort of ask me questions. And, I guess, I was lucky enough to kick a few, but I'd have to nearly say the Fremantle Docker one, and I think the one where we came back, 50-plus points at half-time, and I guess the whole specialness around that game as well, and the circumstances and that win to be a part of that, and obviously some really great things came out of that day. But I do sit down and watch it a few times and then ask myself the question as to actually what was I doing at the start, because I think I nearly ran myself into trouble. So wasn't for the guy on the mark to fall over, I reckon I probably would have ran myself into strife. But unfortunately, I got myself out of it, and I was very fortunate enough to sell a bit of candy and then kick a goal.
You spent a lot more time playing in the middle and across half-back under Dean Bailey. Where was your favourite position to play and why?
I guess as my game started growing and my endurance and fitness started picking up, and then I started realising my, potential as a footballer. And again, when Bales came, he was awesome for me to take my game to that next level. Actually, had some really good fitness guys that worked on my specific training as well with my endurance. Obviously, I wasn't the biggest endurance runner, but I had speed endurance, so it was all about trying to get the balance in the gym and obviously on the training track. And obviously I always knew I was a capable kick with the footy in my hand and make good decisions. And Bale sort of gave me a lot more confidence to sort of grow on that. And I know there was a few clubs I've sort of seen, and there was a rule, there was a rule that our club had to give me the ball. So, like I said, 2009 was a big thanks to all my teammates for giving me the footy, and I'm sure Jared Rivers will take a bit of credit as well, because I could have sworn he would have given me about, a good 60% of my possessions down in the back half of the handball received. So, Bales was awesome for my confidence in the game, and obviously, like I said before, Matty Willen and James McDonald, and it's just one of those things where you sort of start growing, and I probably was one of those ones as well that I pride myself on my disposals, where I'd go for the kicks that people wouldn't try and attempt at certain points of the game, and I was very fortunate enough that most of those came off at the right time. However, a few did miss their targets, but it's all about you deal with it and then just get back on the bike and try and do it again. So, yeah.
You represented Australia several times in the International Rules Series. It must have been a great honour playing for your country.
Oh, massive honour. Some really good memories as well over there. And the most pleasing thing is it's not every day you get to go overseas and represent your country. And you get to meet some really good people as well from the opposition that you play with throughout the year. And, you meet some really good people on there. Some of them became really close mates now from back in 2006 when I went over. So, it's a really, thrilling experience, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And it was fantastic to go over there and really embrace the special culture in the Irish people. And I really loved my time over there, and very lovely people, I will say.
Aaron, you played in a successful side earlier in your career with regular finals appearances. How hard was it in the latter years when the club really began to struggle towards the back end of your career?
Yeah, look, obviously the first few years were pretty successful for us as a footy club. So, it's all about sort of, as well, you just got to make the most of the opportunities, and sometimes you just walk in and footy, they do you some really good cards and at certain points where clubs are at. And I came in the first 3 years and we played finals footy. And then obviously you sort of think, oh, how good is this playing finals footy? But it's amazing how the game can sort of just change within the space of 6 months, and then we're still yet to play finals footy since 2006 when we lost to Fremantle in Perth. And the boys are going really, really well, which is pleasing to see. So hopefully, we break that drought this year. And but in saying the last 6 years of my career, obviously when you're at the bottom of our game, which we were for a fair few years there, you really learn a lot about yourself as a footy club, footy side, and more importantly, as an individual. And I think all those three things were they hold people in great stead. And I know I can only speak personally from my point of view, is I learned a lot about myself as a player, but more importantly as a person. Obviously a lot of things don't go your way in life, and we all do know that, and you get thrown curveballs and injuries and whatnot. And for myself to just sort of stick it out and sort of get towards the back end of my career as well, it was sort of a challenging at time with different personnel that was sort of coming in and out in the football staff. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things where, the only way you learn in life is by failure. And obviously those last 6 years, we weren't doing too great on the footy oval, but I will say we stuck together pretty tightly as a really close group as well.
A lot of resources are put into Indigenous players these days, making sure they have the right support behind them. Did you have a mentor at the D's, someone like you mentioned, Matty Whelan, to take you under his wing?
Yeah, look, Matty Whelan, one of my best mates. And one of the best things Melbourne Football Club sort of gave me was having him when I first came into the system, both being Darwin boys. Although our families were close and knew each other, me and Wheels were sort of, a few years apart. But he took me under his wing and was a massive influence on my career, especially early days. Sort of to eliminate a bit of homesickness, and you got that big brother there that's always there, and picking me up, dropping me off, and he'd done that, for the first 2 years, which I'm extremely grateful for. And yes, I had Wheels, and then obviously Choppy came, and then obviously through unfortunate circumstances, Shannon Motlop came through to the club as well. So there was a good group of us and a few senior players for me to sort of knock around with. And but yeah, it's had some really good role models there. And as I did mention, but there's also Nita, and it's not every day you go and you play footy with James McDonald and Adam Uze, David Neitz, Greenie and Robbo, all these legends, Brucey. I won't leave them all out, but I think I've been pretty blessed. I look back now on my career, the 10 years I played, the names that I have played with, I just think I was extremely lucky to think that I played with, my personal opinion, probably some of the best players and, in the club's history.
Following on from that question, Aaron, did you act as a mentor in your later years to some of the younger Indigenous players coming through?
Yeah, so I think the flow on from that was part of my development as well, from Wheels, and obviously then Dana's, like I said before, around the leadership. And we had Ozzy and LJ come into the system, and people say, do you want to take the mentoring role? I didn't look at it as that. I just sort of took it on as we do, and like Will's done for myself. And Ozzy was staying with me and my wife at the time, our kids. So Ozzy became a big part of our family, and he was awesome for me, Anna, and the kids. So and we're still best mates. LJ became there, and then we had Jamie Bennell and Nev, Nev's doing fantastic stuff now, and it's amazing how it sort of flows into, the next person sort of coming in, and Nev's doing a great job with that and really helping the club in regards to, the Indigenous history and culture, as well as Matty Whelan down there as well. So, yeah, so what was passed on from Wheels, we passed on the boys and Nev, and, that's just one of those given things where you sort of become, because we all have similarities, and I know a lot of people, I think Indigenous players are all the same, but you've got to realise as well that they have nearly 300 different Indigenous groups in Australia, and it's all about learning and education, and Melbourne Football Club and the AFL in as a whole are doing a fantastic job in getting a really good understanding of it.
Yeah, that's certainly true. How important is that role, that sort of mentor role, especially when you have players like you mentioned, Liam Jarrah, for whom the professional footy environment is a million miles away from the community that he grew up in?
Yeah, it's extremely important. Obviously, LJ came from Central Australia, and as I said, people might say, oh, yeah, he's had Flash there, and Flash knows all this about it. But in reality, Liam's Indigenous group, Walpy, were completely different to mine, as opposed to different to Matty Whelan, Neville Jetters. They were all, obviously, but we were one thing that we couldn't take away. We all had the same sort of culture, and that was the Indigenous culture, and we just embraced it. And our culture's so unique and special, you know, and family's a big one, where I'm sure it is, but there's always just that extra specialness about it, and family. And LJ, to his credit, I know, obviously, the last couple of years of his career was sort of tarnished by some negative media, and that I will say what he was able to do and how far he came to enable himself to do that was just absolutely nothing but I'm proud of how he done it and how he coped with it. But I think although the negative that did happen towards the back end of his career, I think what it done as a whole was a really good cultural awareness session in its way, where it enabled everyone to understand the Indigenous culture a lot more. So LJ went on and obviously played some really, really exciting footy, and he brought a lot of people through the gates. But more importantly, the boys, when I see them go up to Alice Springs now, the Demon boys, and they all get around him, and he calls them their brother. That's the most special thing, and that's the special thing that footy, our great game, brings, is people from all over Australia, all over the world now, who become really close mates.
Aaron, your brother Orwin played for the Bombers. Did you ever hope that you might somehow end up playing together at the one club? Was that ever a possibility at any stage?
Yeah, there was. It was always that you'd always wanted to play at the highest level with your brother, and there was only one way about it. I wasn't going anywhere. So if it was ever going to eventuate, he would have to come to Melbourne, which they did have a chat to him at one stage. And I think, again, loyalty was, a big thing in our family. Although we'd love to have played with each other and do our mum proud, who's been a massive role model for us both. Just one of the things you sort of just think, well, things happen for a reason. He comes over to Melbourne. He mightn't play the footy that he was playing. You got to also ask all those questions. But I know there was some rumours surrounding that, I could potentially be going to Essendon, which was all untrue, because, I'd always said from the moment I walked in the club I was going to be a one-club player, and, I walk away and I was able to achieve that. So it would have been good, though. So, like I said, it was only going to be one way about it. It wasn't coming up on my end anyway. So, but he went on and had a fantastic career as well. And, now his boys he's sort of sitting back now, and my nephews are sort of getting their names thrown around in the scene with the father-son academy that they do have. So, but it was always good to play against him, and especially when we beat him, which wasn't very often.
So, what you mentioned you're coaching now. What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so look, I've relocated now up to Cairns in far north Queensland. So my kids and the family all moved up here, and it's been going really well. So I've attempted to take on a role of a footy club that was on their knees last year, and a real proud history club as well in the Cairns City Lions, and we were getting beaten quite convincingly last year with probably over 200. There was about 5 200-point losses.
Wow.
And so we lost a heap amount of players and stuff. So I was approached to take them throughout the year, and sort of was weighing up my options. And then I made the move up in November to be closer to my kids, and took on the challenge. And we hadn't won in 2 years, and although we still had a couple of 100-point defeats this year, the margins decreased massively, and we're able to win 2 games. So if any, I feel like I'm selling myself here, but if there's any Demon supporters that are willing to come up and want to have a kick in beautiful Cairns and help me out and return the favour, I'd be more than happy to get them up here, and they can live the life, because the weather here at the moment is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it's about 24 degrees, and I can assure it's probably 15 degrees, a lot warmer than what it currently is now in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But it's good, mate. It's good, and that's all about. And the best thing about it is, having myself been able to play at the highest level and coming up to a league that's still in a football rugby state. There's clashes, but it's one of the most passionate things I love is giving back to grassroots footy, in which I'm working at AFL Cairns now, as well as a football development manager role and overseeing the women's competition as the league coordinator. So, things are going well.
And are you still a passionate D's fan?
One-eyed D's fan. So, it's actually best and first one and a life member. They're the two things I hold really close to my heart. And it's always good to watch the D's. And, hopefully, I know me and Matty Whelan had a bit of a joke about it a couple of weeks ago when they were winning a fair few games. We might have to start booking. I might have to start booking some tickets here in September.
Yeah.
So I think we might have jinxed us there because then we lost to Collingwood. But I better make sure they give us life members free tickets to the grand final too.
I like your confidence.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
One last one for you, Flash, and we're very appreciative of your time. You can see from your social media accounts that there are a number of Davey juniors running around. How many kids have you got, and when can we expect them to be drafted to the MFC under either the father-son or the father-daughter rule?
Yeah, obviously, we got a few kids myself, so I know Mum wanted some grandchildren way back, and with the five of us, she didn't expect to get 21 of them. So I've got five. So my daughter, 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗏, who's growing, she's 16 this year, and she was always there the first few years, and then Michaela, who's going to be 14. I don't think 𝗟𝗏𝘀𝘁 has played a couple of games up here, but I don't think they have quite what it takes to sort of play the highest level. But the three boys of mine, Marley, he's 8, he's playing footy up here for the City Lions Juniors and loving every moment of it. And the twin boys, Archie and Isaac, who will be 6 next month, who are playing footy as well. So they're big D's fans, so I'd like to think, having 5 kids, that I get the opportunity to see at least one of them, if not ideally like all 4 of them, to wear the mighty red and blue, and then I can sit down and have a beer in the grandstand and watch them play. So, it's one of those great things as well that footy does give, and, playing at the one club for so long, the opportunities that it does give, and allows past players and their kids. I think it's awesome idea from the AFL. But yeah, like I said, hopefully the boys are, pretty half decent players, and then they go on to play, because it'd be nothing more special than watching my sons go out there and be able to do what I was able to achieve, and more importantly for the mighty D's.
Exactly. Aaron, thank you very much for joining us on the Demonland podcast tonight. We've interviewed a lot of your contemporaries in the past 2 years, and it's great taking a stroll down memory lane and reliving some of those exciting times. And it's also great to be able to personally thank you guys for the hours of entertainment and enjoyment that you've given us supporters over the years. So thank you very much.
Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate to be asked to come on the show, and it's always good. And I know players don't really get to say a lot, and although I'm a past player, we couldn't do it week in, week out without all you guys and your tremendous and amazing support. So from me personally, I all the people that did support me along the way, truly am grateful, and as last sister, I'd like to say thanks as well. So thanks, guys, and really appreciate your time.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.